I think slavish behavior is one of the most pathetic ways for human beings to manifest. Of course, we learn it when we're young. We have to get approval from our parents, and so we modify our behavior, and this is what slavish behavior is all about. We modify our opinions or behavior to seek external approval. Because if you don't get approval from your parents when you're a kid, well, it's not going to be very good for you. So be a good boy, be a good girl, don't do this, do that, and all the rest of it. And so we kind of conform to it. So we kind of learn some level of slavish behavior, although it's wholly unconscious when we're kids. We're just wanting approval. We want our parents to love us. And approval is seen as one way of expressing that. Anyway, the problem with slavish behavior is that it causes suffering. A lot of suffering. At an individual level, slavish behavior means that you conform to some external requirements to get approval and put your own real needs and desires on the back burner. And of course, it kind of creates, or can create, quite a lot of inner friction and resentment. There's clearly a payoff. So let's talk about slavish behavior, not as a child because it's largely unconscious, but as an adult. Well, we want to fit into the herd, don't we? We want to be a member of the herd because there's safety in numbers. I mean, it's all animal stuff. We're looking for approval from the herd so we can be part of it and hopefully be protected by it and sort of dissolve into it. But in order to do that, we have to essentially anesthetize our own individuality. And you see this at all kinds of levels. So you see people in family situations who are demonstrating slavish behavior. They might be interested in, who knows what, fucking devil worship or something. But, the family environment is such that cannot be accommodated. And so their natural inclinations get put on the back burner and their natural interests. And that creates frustration and anger and resentment. But that is the price many people will pay in a family situation or with their group of peers to be a part of the herd. So you can see here there is clearly a trade-off. To be part of the herd means that you sacrifice your own individuality. To not be part of the herd means that you risk being isolated. So, you choose your poison. But as adults, I've mentioned that children demonstrate slavish behavior towards their parents. But as adults, we really need to put away childish things and realize that we are individuals, and if people around us cannot accept us for what we are, then fuck them. We'll find people who can. But of course that's not so easy. If you look at slavish behavior, the greatest slaves, the ones you need to have most compassion and feeling for, are celebrities. They are slaves to their fans, to their adoring audiences. And if I don't know, say some celebrity that's a fashion icon, if they suddenly decide to think to themselves, well, fuck fashion, I'm sick of it, then they'll lose all their little fans who follow their every move. So there's a two-way slavery there. There's a slavery of the fans to the celebrity and the slavery of the celebrity to the fans. Not nice, not to be envied in truth. You know, these people might earn a lot of money, but it's not worth it. Their lives become a shell life, a pretend life, an artifact, something that's been created, and there's nothing in there that's real. And of course, this whole thing of slavish behavior has become amplified through social media. If you look at Facebook, and by the way, I don't know whether you use Facebook or not, or other social media, but did you know, here's a news flash, did you know that you can now go on holiday without posting it all over fucking Facebook? And did you know that you can go out for a meal without posting it on Facebook? Or did you know that you can lark about with your mates without posting it on Facebook? It's all slavish behavior, and of course it's mixed in with narcissism, but it's the look what I've done, or look what I'm doing. Please approve of it. You know, the more likes you get, the more you feel you're accepted into the club. The club being what? Well, general approval from your so-called friends on Facebook. But as I say, that is a mixture of slavish behavior, please approve of what I'm doing, and narcissism, which is, look at what I'm doing, fuck you, I'm better than you, I've been for a nicer meal, I've been for a nicer holiday, I have more fun than you. I knew a man a few years ago who was really quite poor, and he said the most offensive thing he found on Facebook was people posting pictures of their fucking meals. They go out to a restaurant and they post a picture of whatever it is. He said, a third of the world is hungry and starving. They don't want to see that shit on Facebook. Not that many of them will do, I suppose, but he was quite offended by it. Anyway, the issue here is that most people being, I guess really nearly all, will happily exhibit slavish behavior to become part of the group, to become part of the herd. The problem is that the herd has no conscience, and so you find large groups of people, and this is well understood by psychologists, large groups of people will behave in whatever way, each one of them behaving in whatever way they feel will get approval from the rest of the group. And so in that group situation they will do things, horrific things, that they wouldn't do as an individual. So slavish behavior produces these groups of people. It might be people who belong to some, I don't know, some violent kind of group. They will do things in that group that they wouldn't do as an individual. So slavishness overall causes human misery. It causes misery because we deny our own needs and real wants, and the reality is most people don't know what their real needs and wants are. They've lost touch with it. They're so focused on what approval or how to get approval from the group. So it causes misery in that sense. Of course, if you say, fuck it, I'm not going to do all this slavish stuff, you will, and almost certainly will, find yourself isolated to some extent. But there are other people around, albeit not so many, who are also not willing to exhibit slavish behavior. I never did particularly in my life, and that did isolate me. But You know, as Albert Einstein said, isolation when you're young is problematical. When you're old, it's a blessing. So it causes misery at the personal level, but also it causes misery at a kind of societal level, because people, to be part of the group, then start behaving in ways that are or can be quite repugnant. You know, I was reading a few days ago about the tech people who now inhabit San Francisco, who look upon the homeless as though they're scum. You know, if they were individuals without that kind of environment, they might not be so heartless and unforgiving, but in a group, you know, they all think they're the fucking bee's knees, and that group mentality takes over. And I imagine if one of them was to say, oh well, you know, maybe we ought to do something for the homeless, blah blah blah, all the rest of them would look on them as though they were from some other planet. So it causes pain because we don't do what we really are, and the other pain is because people in groups behave fairly badly very often. The solution, of course, is to start taking pleasure in your own self, in what you really are. You know, that's easier said than done. The reality is that most people's attention, and this is just a biological thing, to try and ensure survival, their attention is on how other people are viewing them. But that is slavery, slavish behavior. You know, to move beyond the animal and to become an individual takes guts and courage, and not a lot of people are going to do it in truth. But yeah, that's where the real pleasure lies, in my opinion anyway. Fuck everybody else, they can go and do what they want. You don't impose restrictions on them. You don't, I certainly don't require that other people either do or think the way that I think. I'm quite happy in my own understanding and knowledge, and my own lifestyle. And yes, it does cause isolation to some extent, but I like that. You know, I don't want to have to talk with a bunch of fucking morons every day. Quite happy in my own company. You know, I don't live alone, but my lifestyle is determined by me, not by anybody else. Anyway, I'll finish this off by saying that to get to a position where you are seeking your own approval instead of approval from a whole pile of external people, you know, isn't something you just switch on. It requires a lot of understanding, a lot of work on one's own nature. But you know, it's one of the greatest pleasures there is on this planet, to have your own sense of approval for yourself instead of always fucking seeking other people's approval, which is slavery.